Okay.
All right, we already have 2 people in so far. Hey, if everyone can use the chat mechanism, there's a button on the left. Introduce yourself, name, title, company.
Monica, will you be recording this?
Yes.
Excellent.
It actually already is. I learned that from yesterday. It doesn't automatically do it unless you tell it to. So I had to hit start yesterday, but today it's already recording. Okay, so Karen Suarez from Toluca, Mexico, Iolo Jetex, FBO. Thanks, Karen, for coming. Santiago, where are you from? Oh, the Galapagos Islands again in Ecuador. Awesome. So, Mike, I'm going to wait a couple more minutes because we do have 20 registered. So we only have a couple in right now.
No problem at all. I'm not going anywhere. Karen, Santiago, welcome. Glad you guys could be here. You win the prize for being the first 2 in the room. So way to be the early bird.
Oh, I always in Miami, everyone's always late. It's the opposite. Like these webinars, sometimes like half the people will show up. In Miami, your number will double the day of the event. And or people will just show up to pay to pay the ticket with because I'm part of a chamber and it always happens to us. And hosts will be like worried for a little while, like, oh, the numbers, we've only got 15. I'm like, no, we'll get 40 tomorrow. It's the strangest thing, but that's the way it works in Miami. Like everyone's either always late or last minute or so.
No, I think I may have accidentally advanced the slide as well. I don't know if I did that or you did that.
I don't see that. Do you, Joe?
I'm still on slide 1, but I was fiddling around with them.
Oh, okay. No, they can't see it then. So it lets you know what's coming up. That's good to know. So I'm the only one right now that has the control.
It's interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're gonna give it 2 more minutes to see who else flows in, and then we'll get started.
Looks like we had David join us as well. David, if you want to go into the chat and maybe tell everybody where you're from, what company you're with, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, it's morning over where he is then. It's 1:00 over here in Miami.
Good morning, David.
Guadalajara. I flew into Guadalajara once to go to San Miguel de Allende, and it's beautiful. It's a town, like, if you haven't been there, I tell everybody about that trip. It's an amazing, amazing city to visit in Mexico. It's in the middle of the mountains, and it's like this beautifully preserved, like historical little Spanish town, cobblestone roads, church in the middle, like medieval time style. It's beautiful.
I'm
That does
jealous
sound
already.
fantastic.
I was lucky enough to go for a wedding around Dia de los Muertos. So I saw like the entire, like the elaborate, like marigolds displays with the pictures of their grandparents. And it was, I mean, it was like the place was magical. Guanajuato. So, okay. I thought Guadalajara, I had to fly into Guadalajara to get to San Miguel. Oh, maybe I was wrong. Then I flew into.
Well, you know,
But I
it was
know
a great story anyway.
San Miguel. This definitely was San Miguel. It's a little close. Okay, cool. All right, then. Well, I'm going to get started. So like I was telling everyone, today's thank you for coming to our first annual Volar Adelante Day 3. This is our last session. We are looking to do this every year and address topics and bring the Latin American FBO community together. We hope to do it in person next time, so stay tuned for that. Today's topic is training and safety. There are two ways to join the conversation. We've got the chat icon on the left, like you guys just used right now. There's a question icon. So don't ask your questions in the chat, just in case, to avoid them getting buried. Do submit your questions to our speakers in the chat, in the question icon. And then please participate in the polls. We have some survey questions that we'd like to ask you and get your insight from where you're at in the world. So the more data, the better for all of us, and better we can serve you in our organizations. So now I'm going to introduce Mike France from NATA, and I'm going to transfer the mic over to you.
All right. And I guess, all right, I'm in control now. That's a little scary. All right. Well, Monica, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I'm not sure who that guy is you got up on the screen right there. He doesn't seem to have the big white beard like I do. I look like I'm getting ready to try out for Santa Claus role here or something. So no, but seriously, I do appreciate the opportunity. You guys at X1 are a fantastic organization, and the things you're doing for the industry are just amazing. As someone who comes from a trade association, which is, you know, nothing but an organization built around bringing companies together, to see what you're doing here for the Latin American FBO and business aviation, or aviation business, I should say, industry is fantastic. So it's a real honor to get to be a part of this. To everyone who's attending, thanks for taking time out of what I'm sure is a busy schedule to be here. We got some great conversation for you today to talk a little bit about safety, a little bit about training. Myself and Joe McDermott, who will. Hi, Joe. How are you today?
Doing well, Mike.
All right, just going to let Joe say hi there for a second. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll start talking safety. As Monica said, my name is Mike France. I'm the Managing Director of Safety and Training here at the National Air Transportation Association. The name of our organization is a bit of a misnomer. It's the National Air Transportation Association, but we do have members all around the globe, including in Latin America. So it's great to, I know in some of the events yesterday and the day before, a number of our members participated as well. So it's really cool. I've been in the FBO industry, goodness now, it's been the last 22 years. It's hard to believe it has gone by that fast. Like many of you, I did start my career actually out on an FBO ramp, towing airplanes, pumping fuel, and taking care of passengers and flight crews. And so right now what I do is I head up the Safety First program here at NATA. It is a training and education program that serves FBOs and really any organization that does ground handling of general and business aviation aircraft all around the globe. We've got almost 900 locations globally that use our training. And the really cool thing is our training is built by our members, right? So it's not just me sitting here telling you guys what to do. We try to really work with members. But enough about me and enough about NATA. You guys can always look that up online if you want to know. What I want to talk about today is safety and training. But let's start with safety. And I do want to encourage everybody, if you're just joining in or you just got here, please take just a moment to go down to that chat box and just say hello to everyone. Tell us where you're from. That way it's in there. And I encourage you at any point in time today, if you have a question, you can click on that little question icon over there on the left-hand side of the screen, and that'll pop up, and you can put your question right in there, and Joe and I and Monica will get it. And, it's a lot more fun when we just kind of answer questions as we go. So let's start off. I think, it's hard to talk about safety without asking the question, are you safe? We hear that all the time. Am I a safe operation? How do I know if I'm a safe operation? I haven't had any accidents recently. We haven't damaged any aircraft. Does that mean I am safe or not? And so, right before we got on, I looked up the word safety, trying to figure out, how in the world could you define safety? And according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, safety is being protected from danger, risk, or injury. And I found that kind of interesting. I started thinking about that and what it means. The part of the definition that I really like is being protected from. I think we all could probably agree that we work in an industry that comes with risk. There's always the risk of damaging an aircraft. There's always the risk of someone getting hurt. And unfortunately, there's always the risk of people losing their lives. And so this definition is somewhat okay for our purposes, being protected from danger, risk, or injury. But we do have to come at it with the idea that protection is never 100%, is it? We try to get it as close to 100% protected as we can. And that's where I think safety really comes in. It's that effort, that trying, the actions we take. Safety isn't just something that exists as a magic shield around us. It's something we do. We do it every day, day in and day out. And so, that kind of asks the question, then what makes up safety? What are those actions? And, I can think of a few of them. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the folks here on the session today have a safety management system, an SMS, in which you're actively managing safety. A lot of you all probably spend time trying to create an open and honest culture in your organization where employees feel empowered to be able to proactively contribute to identifying risks and mitigating risks and so on. That's another thing we can do. We can work on building that culture. And then finally, there's training. And there's probably even more than that, but those are the kind of the three I'm looking at today. SMS, culture, training. I guess I should ask, Joe, is there anything I'm missing or any other big actions out there other than, doing a management system, working on your culture and training that probably play into building safety in an organization?
Well, I always say safety has to start at the very, very top of an organization.
Yeah.
CEO down. If there's no responsibility at that level or no safety culture at that level, it will not seep down onto the ramp, and then you have a problem.
What's really cool, Joe, is I have that same belief, right? You got to have the buy-in from the top, but when you see these really outstanding organizations that do safety, and I mean it that way, doing safety is something we do. It's not something that just happens. It tends to come from the top, but it also comes from the bottom, right? If you can get that where you have the executives and the bosses and the owners and the CEOs who have the right mindset and attitude and they're building the culture, but you also have people at the bottom taking ownership in their organization and their daily jobs. Man, that's a terrific sight to see. And I'm sure, Joe, you've been to organizations where that is occurring. All right, so
been there indeed, and it's great to see when people on the ramp, particularly the junior people, buy into it and become enthusiastic and take their own ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk a little bit about training. I mean, I think we could probably eat up a week's worth of these sessions if we tried to cover SMS, culture, and training today. So today what we're going to focus in on is just a little bit more on the training side and how does training play into safety? And that might sound like a pretty basic question. I mean, you hear it and say, well, how does training play into safety? The answer is, if we're going to be able to do a job, we have to start with knowing how to do it, right? Look at the tasks that we complete on a daily basis out there on an airport ramp, towing multi-million-dollar aircraft around, driving around trucks maybe with volatile fuels in the tank just 2 feet behind our head. That's a safety conscious activity we really need to make sure we understand how to do it. So what I've done, what we try to do is look at training from kind of three perspectives. There's a knowledge perspective, a skill perspective, and then a competency perspective, right? And each one of those three are really, really important in and of themselves, but together they really constitute what I like to call training. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about those. Let's start with knowledge first of all. And how does knowledge into FBO operations and creating that protection from danger, risk, and injury? I always like to start here in the United States, where I'm based. We do have a legal requirement to do what we call hazardous communications training, and that's really a principle that you find probably in almost every country, every state there in the world, that says, hey, you have to train your employees about the hazardous materials that are around them, that they handle at work. I mean, you think of most FBOs, we tend to handle aviation gasoline and jet fuel, both of which are hazardous substances. And so the first step in training is knowledge, right? We can provide knowledge. A great example of that is, what are the hazards of using, of coming into contact with that, let's say 100 low lead aviation gasoline. It's a pretty nasty chemical, right? Lead, we all know, hopefully, that lead is not particularly friendly to our bodies. And getting that knowledge, building that knowledge, helps us prepare ourselves to protect ourselves from that. Second, if we want to look at other ways of knowledge, it can be the knowledge of how we protect ourselves, whether it's from a chemical, whether it's understanding kind of intuitively that knowledge that comes about, like, say, about propeller safety. Knowing that the propellers can be very, very hard to see when they're fully at speed, especially at nighttime. That's some knowledge that comes part of basic training. So, we can have knowledge in lots of areas. We have knowledge on how to properly connect tow bars, knowledge on how to inspect a tug before usage, and many, many other areas. So the first part of training is starting to provide that knowledge, and companies do that a lot of different ways, right? Some just use in-house expertise, right? You've got somebody that's worked at your company for many, many years and understands all of these things, and can sit down and talk with new employees or even veteran employees and remind them of the dangers or the procedures and things that they need to know. Others use what I kind of call like a standardized curriculum. It may be a standardized company curriculum, or you might be using a global standardized training program like the NATA Safety First program. We always like to think of the first step of Safety First as about getting that basic level of knowledge that we might need to have. And again, it's very broad. It can be everything. I always look at kind of the introductory training that we do for new FBO employees, and it includes things like the phonetic alphabet, converting between time zones, and understanding universal coordinated time or Zulu time. Those are knowledges. So that's the first piece that we need to be able to think about, but it's not everything, right? Just, you could sit down and watch all the training you could possibly think of. You could read all the books you could possibly think of. Does that mean you're ready to go out and fuel an airplane? Probably not. The next step in training is skill development. You got to be able to take that knowledge and now actually apply it in your day-to-day work activities. And this is the area where most FBOs have tended to focus on skill building. I remember when I was trained many, many years ago when I first started, it was following somebody around on the ramp and they were showing me how to do things. How do I drive the tug? How do I operate the tug? How do I drive the fuel truck? And give me practice, in a safe environment, driving the tug or the fuel truck. Over time, I started to learn how to connect single point pressure refueling for various different types of aircraft, how to operate the panels, and what to do, and get skilled at being able to do those types of things. So we've done a lot of that in our industry, but one of the things that struck us at NATA and many of our members is that what we saw was you'd have these companies where there was the one individual who really knew how to do everything. And that individual was the one that was responsible for training everybody. And it usually worked pretty good until that individual retired or got another job, right? They would leave and go somewhere else, and all that knowledge would walk out the door. So, I'll tell you how we address it at NATA. What we have done in each of our courses, it's not just a video that you watch online. We also have what we call on-the-job training requirements, or an on-the-job training worksheet. And what that does is it gives specific guidance to a trainer who's training somebody on how to help that individual build the skills they need to be effective at doing that job. So the example I would use would be laboratory servicing on an aircraft. When you take our laboratory servicing course, you're going to go in, you're going to watch probably a 15 to 20 minute training course on how to do it, what to know, how to protect yourself, and all those types of things. There'll be a little quiz for you, but then you would go out on the ramp with your trainer, and that's where your trainer would be able to use this resource that our program provides to help train you on the skills you need to actually be able to do it. Showing you the process, hooking up the fill hose, hooking up the disconnect hose, what order you need to pull the handle. Do you need to do prime? And if so, how many gallons? Do you need to flush the system afterwards? All those different types of things. So that's a vital part of training. You can't just stop with the knowledge. You have to then effectively implement that knowledge. And I'll show you a little bit more of that kind of as we go forward. So that's knowledge and skill. Joe, am I missing anything so far when it comes to like building knowledge and building skill? I am going to come back and relate it all to our program in a minute, but just thought now is a good time for a quick check-in with you.
No, excuse me. No, Mike, I think you're covering all the bases there.
All right. Well, very good. Excuse me, get a quick drink of water here and we'll continue forward. So the last step is what we call proficiency. So you got knowledge, that's that basic understanding of what's going on, how do you do something. Then there's the skill, that muscle memory, the riding a bicycle, right? You can watch all the videos you can think of on YouTube on how to ride a bicycle, but it's not until you get on there and you start pedaling and you realize, hey, this thing isn't going to tip over, that your body kind of goes, all right, I got it. And, that's why even at my old age now, I can hop on a bicycle and, I might wreck, but it won't be immediate anyway, right? And then competency, proficiency, I guess, either one, competency, proficiency, they're kind of interchangeable in this case. That is that process by which we kind of step back and we look at somebody who's been trained, is training, and we assess, have we been successful in giving them the knowledge and giving them the skills, and if they internalized it and are able to demonstrate proficiency. You can do that through a lot of ways. I always talk when I do train the trainer sessions about using what I call open-ended questions. Too many times you see trainers will train somebody and they'll go, okay, did you understand all of that? And what's the answer that they get? Yes. Most people are afraid to say, no, I don't understand, because they feel pressured and on the spot. So what you can do is you can use what are called open-ended questions to be able to get at that and understand and peek inside their brain a little bit. Do they understand the material? If I ask you, I said, well, tell me about how to service the lab on a Lear 60. You can't answer that question with a yes or no. You've got to actually be able to demonstrate knowledge. So that's one way to assess proficiency. Of course, there's always the observation, especially for physical skills. When we talk about actually driving a tug or connecting a ground power unit, those are things that you can observe somebody doing, and you can do a checklist. Did they do all the right steps? Did they use the proper personal protective equipment? Did they chalk the wheels and those types of things? And you can demonstrate that, yes, this person is proficient at performing whatever task it is. So it's really those three items coming together when it comes to training that create or help create this safety, the actions of how we do safety. We do it by focus on providing people knowledge. We do it by helping them to build skills. And then third, we do it by assessing proficiency and making sure they're proficient. And if not, applying retraining. So this is a good point right here. Well, I'll ask our audience again. If you have some questions, now's a perfect time to start typing those in the box here, because I'd love to answer your questions. What I'm going to do right now is show you a little bit about what we do at NATA. Maybe this will help give you some ideas on how the various programs can work together, or various items that we talked about can work together. Things like, sorry, apparently I cannot talk and type at the same time. Knowledge, skills, and proficiency working together. So let's do this. All right, Monica, I am going to try to share my screen now. As soon as this loads, we'll see kind of how this works. Well, let's just try it and see. Nope, not going to be able to do that because it's not already enabled on my computer. So, well, maybe it will. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah, I think maybe I can. Let's see if this works. All right. So can you guys see, maybe Joe or Monica, let me know. Can you see our kind of NATA support site?
Yeah, I can see it.
Awesome.
Mike, you were talking about proficiency. So how does NATA measure that? Like, how do you were talking about the questioning, the training. So how do you guys measure at the end of the day? How do you give the certification? Is there a grading scale? Like,
so that is Monica, that's a fantastic question, right? Online training provider like NATA, how do we assess proficiency? And it's actually really simple. We don't. It's not my role to assess proficiency. And the reason being is every FBO is different. It's the old saying, right? You've seen one FBO,
yeah.
you've seen one FBO, they're all different. Due to the specific local conditions, the types of equipment that are out there, the specific traffic mixes, the environment, the proficiency needed to really be effective at a specific FBO is best judged by those that are there.
Okay.
When somebody's using the NATA Safety First program, we can help assess knowledge, right? We can do multiple choice tests online. We can provide the training and put quizzes in it and things like that help us to assess the level of knowledge. We can provide the on-the-job training resources. What we do is we provide a practical exam guidance, and I'll show you one here in a few minutes, that helps the end user be able to decide or gives them the types of things they should be looking at when they're assessing proficiency. Does that kind of answer the question for you?
Yeah, I was curious.
No problem, and we'll take a look.
I'm the newest. Yeah.
Oh, you broke up there. What was that?
No, that I'm the newest one to aviation out of the group and probably the company. So I'll have more of those kinds of questions for you.
Oh goodness, no worries. That's fantastic. And like I said, if you're one of the attendees, please throw some questions at me. It makes it a lot more engaging when we can kind of address things together. So what I'm going to do here, I just went to our website right here. This is our support website, and we're going to look at our course catalog. I just want to show you a little bit of the type of training we do. So we've got over 70 different courses, and you can see here, I'm scrolling relatively slowly, the various topics, things like supervision. We got a flight coordinator set of courses. We've got health and safety, towing, SMS, ground handling, fuel quality. Let's go look at the line service fundamentals. I'll show you a little bit about that. And this may not display all that great over a screen share, so my apologies. But you can see we have all of our courses are numbered. We have an aircraft marshaling course, wing walking course, so on and so forth, apron operations management. I'm going to scroll a little faster here. There we go, all the way down to things like ground power units. So quite a bit of courseware that's available. And the way our program works is you're able to take all these different courses, the 70 different courses, and mix and match them and build them into a curriculum that works for your team. And that was one of the most recent updates we've done to our system. from the way we used to do training, because what we heard as we went around the world is every FBO has different environments and wants to do training different. I know in Europe, most FBOs don't provide fuel servicing. To be honest, I'm not really sure in Latin America. And you know what? I'm going to throw this out there for the audience. So please weigh in. Either you can type it in the chat box. That'd be interesting. Let me know if you guys on the session today, do you provide fuel servicing as a part of your FBO services? So I'd really like to know that. But the way our system works now, if you don't, or let's say you don't do ground power for some reason or something, you don't need to incorporate that training. You can kind of build it all together. And so it works out really cool that way. So I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm hoping I don't break anything here, Monica, as we go through this. I'm now going to actually show you a little bit of our what we call the learning management system, that part of our training that actually where the work gets done. So give me 1 second here as this comes up. So this is what we call the NATA Safety First Training Center. This is the administrative view. I'm going to switch over to the student view. And so here I am right now. This is the student view. Monica, can just again to verify, you guys can see this?
Yep,
awesome.
we have it.
Awesome. So this is where a student would log in to begin their training, to go through and say you work on that knowledge piece. The course that we're looking at right now is aircraft D and anti-icing. I'll actually click on this. I won't be able to play the content. It doesn't usually play very well
As
over.
practical, begin at the tail.
It doesn't often. What's that?
Yeah, we can hear and see it actually. It'll work on a web browser.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna turn the audio off just because I don't want it to. Can you still hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. Sorry, I just don't want to break anything. So this is the way the content works, right? So they can go in, just hit next and go through the courses. I've built this custom course track that I just call all courses here, which just has everything we offer. I use this for demonstration purposes. But you just scrolling through, you can see some cool things here. You can see which courses I've completed. I can see the ones that I started maybe during a demo like this one, but never finished. You can see courses that I have. There's a red one that is expiring within 30 days, telling me, hey, I need to get in there and redo my turbine engine oil servicing and so on. I can then scroll down and we give you all the info on the courses and some links. But here's where I talk about that OJT and practical exam. So here is the on-the-job training guide. And again, it's not going to be full screen here because it's being shown inside the training window. But we have one of these for each and every course. And we use something that we call the structured training model, the STM, to help provide that skills training. And the structured training model is really just a 7-step process to actually training somebody like out on the ramp. And the steps are pretty simple: prepare, explain, demonstrate, let the student practice it with some oversight, let them practice it with a little more independence, debrief them, and then do the assessment. We provide for the trainer, we provide safety considerations for every single course. Again, this is turbine engine oil servicing, so they're relating specifically to this task. And then we give notes to the trainer on how best to, or not how best, but ideas on how they might implement each of these steps as they're doing that training. And like I said, you see one of these for each and every course that has an on-the-job training requirement.
Mike, we have a question actually.
Awesome. Let me come back.
Recurring training, the balance between what's too much and not enough.
Yeah, that's a never-ending question, right? It kind of goes back and forth. So what we have done is under our old system, where we kind of only had like 10 modules, and each module was an hour and a half to 2 hours long. You just had to do it every 2 years, and that kind of became drudgery for a lot of people. So our new program, we have recurrency broken up by course. So for example, let me go back in here and find it. Let's see, give me 1 second and I'll find it here. It's one of the B courses, and I just saw it right there. Introduction to General and Business Aviation. Great course if you've never been in aviation. You're going to learn a lot about what our business is. But once you've been in the industry for a couple of years, you probably don't need it very often. So you can see right here, I completed this back in April, and my expiration date is 30 years in the future. This course, for all intents and purposes, never expires. I don't know why our developers chose, I guess they chose 20 years. Basically, this course never expires. Other courses, for example, like misfueling prevention. Right now, we have that course set that it needs recurrency every year. Other courses are good for 2 years, some are good for 3, and we're constantly adjusting that depending on what we see in the industry. If all of a sudden we saw this huge rash of ground power incidents, we would probably lower the recurrency on ground power training to yearly. That way it would kind of force the industry to get in there and take a look at it.
I have a question. Is there room for an X1 slide in there?
Is there what?
Is there room for an X1 slide, an introduction to general and business aviation?
Absolutely. You know, that's one of the cool things about our system is we can actually incorporate other vendors' training into the Safety First learning management system. So we've done that with a number of FBOs, right? A lot of FBOs, they have a internal training course on how to, well, let's say this, you might have a course on how to use X1, you know, if you're a CSR. And it might be a basic course. We can apply that and put it right into the training management system so that X1 customers, when they're in here doing their training for their CSRs, can build X1 training right into their custom course track. Or, you know, whatever, if you have a specific company training program you use. So we really tried to build this to make it as flexible as we can. All right, let me come back here. So that kind of answers the recurrency question, right? The other piece I'll show you is we do have a feature, and I'm going to go back to the administrative portal right here, that we call retraining. And you get a big warning here that says it's not for recurrency, it's for retraining. So our system, and I'm going to find myself in here, maybe. There I am, Mike France. So I could go in and create retraining. Let's say my boss says, you know what, Mike's not very good at conflict resolution. He's forever getting into it with other employees and he needs to be retrained. His recurrency isn't due until 2023, but you know what? We want him to train now on conflict resolution. They can simply hit reset and okay. And what ends up happening then is it's gone ahead and reset my training for that specific topic. That way I've got to go in and do it ahead of recurrency. So you always end up with ways to manage that kind of timeline between the various training. So I'll stop sharing my screen there. That's enough talking about our program. You know, I'm always willing, if anybody's ever interested in learning more about how the NATA Safety First program works, I'd love to talk with you about it and be happy to show it to you in real detail. But that I want to kind of start putting a wrap around at least this idea of training as a component to safety. And again, it comes back to understanding that safety isn't about, you know, some invincible wall that's going to protect us from ever having an accident or ever getting hurt or ever anything like that. What it is, it's something that we do day in and day out, and we find it important because it helps us to be safe. It's the doing of safety. And so the easy way, as I said at the beginning, to think about it is knowledge, the information that you need to know to be safe or to help you be safe or to perform your job, the skills you need, and then again, finally, that proficiency. So, you know, with that right now, I'll kind of wrap up at least my presentation. I'm not going anywhere. I think Joe's got some things to talk about, and hopefully we have even more questions coming in, and I'll be more than happy to weigh in on all of those. So let me ask right now, Monica or Joe, any after hearing me drone on here for the last 30, 40 minutes, any questions you guys have for me?
No, I had no idea how large the access was on internet for training. So I didn't know you had so many tools. So it's really cool that you made it accessible and easy to access for other FBOs to access this kind of training for their employees. I had no idea.
Yeah, and we this is just the tip of the iceberg sticking out of the water. There's even more that we don't have time to get into today, and we're excited because we've got friends in the industry like you guys at X1 that are doing amazing things with technology as well, and so it is really exciting to get to be a part of this kind of. I was actually just talking to somebody today about the future of the FBO. The FBO of the future, I guess would be the way to say it. So a lot of exciting things, right?
Yeah, I can definitely see that why there's so much synergy between now us and you guys now, and how you're embracing the technology and getting your courses on the internet. It's great.
Yeah. And the one thing I always try to say when people say, "Oh, you're a computer-based training provider," and I say, "Okay, well, yeah, but we're one of the few that also includes on-the-job training resources, practical exams. We even have what we call safety first on-site. So if you're a relatively new FBO or you've got a relatively new workforce, and you need to make sure your trainers are up to speed, right? If you don't have somebody that can do the training, you could find yourself in a spot. Well, that's where you can talk to us, and we've got a number of professionals that we work with that we can come out and spend a day or 2 days or 3 days or a week, however much you want, and work on training the trainers so that they've got the knowledge then to be able to go and create that culture and training for the rest of their staff.
Well, I'd like to add in there that 2 years ago, since you brought in the subscription system, and it allowed all different types of FBOs and all different locations tailor the training specifically to the methods they use in their operations and to the needs. It's very, very flexible. It's very intuitive. But because you also have the OJT side of it, it instills a lot more confidence. In my case, it's meant I've been able to parachute into various locations that are doing the safety first online training, and they have their own trainer. But I've had the opportunity to go in and mentor people. And very often you find you've got some people that aren't quite as long in the business as their colleagues are, or they may not have the same level of confidence, or they may have been trained elsewhere and have as many bad habits as good.
Right.
Companies can find that if you've got somebody who can come in and mentor people, spend time with them, tell them maybe a few stories, show them how things are done alternatively, you get a better product, get better result at the end of it. And when the training goes really, really well, and you build a professional confidence into them, you see the strut on the ramp changes, they become happier in their work, more attentive, and you can also help them build their teams so that the teams are more efficient. And all of that leads to a far, far safer environment.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, and I appreciate the kind words. I do know though. Next time you go parachuting into a location, I want to be there to watch that one. What kind of plane are you jumping out of when you come in? That's a neat way of doing business. No, I know. I'm just joking, but you're exactly right. That modular nature of the program and the subscription, that is something, Joe, that I should have brought up. We don't charge you by the course you use, or well, I want 5 courses, it's going to be this much. No, I want to train on 8 courses, this much. It's a fixed annual fee based on the number of people you're training, and you get unlimited use of everything we have, plus anything new. Right? I've got like 9 or 10 courses that are in production right now. When they come out, all of our users will get those, and they'll be able to use them. It's not some extra fee or anything like that. The other great thing, and I apologize for not knowing this, in Latin America, I'm not sure whether you all are seeing the same level of workforce challenge that we are here in the States. Turnover rates are very, very high right now in the U.S. I've talked to some FBOs that are seeing turnover rates in excess of 100% a year, meaning their entire staff is leaving and they're having to hire all new staff. With the subscription service, you don't have to pay anything. If somebody leaves, you just mark them inactive, hire a replacement, and put them into the system and get them training. We're able to do that because we are a not-for-profit organization that is built to serve the industry. So, we're not trying to create a profit here, and nobody's trying to get rich. We're trying to do something that's going to help safety. And I should say, nothing against for-profit companies. For-profit companies are great too and can do amazing things. Right, Monica?
Yep.
All right.
All right. You want to hand me back
that's right.
the control, and then I'll get into to Joe's side.
All right, here we go. So with that, I will hand control back to you, Monica. There you go.
Thanks. So now we're going to introduce Joe McDermott, and I'm going to let Joe take the floor. He has a very extensive bio and resume, so I'd like him to do a humble brag and talk about himself for a little bit.
Well, I suppose I better do that, talk about myself a little bit. I've been around forever. FBO has been mostly what I've been involved in has been FBOs, but I've been involved in a lot of other operations over the years, as you might guess. Also been involved in aviation magazines and blogs and everything else along that line. But specifically here with what we're dealing with today, I've been involved in supporting training implementation at various locations across the world, particularly in places that hadn't previously tried the online systems. Usually where you'd have an FBO and the training was done by some guy who might be quite good, but he might have come from the airline business. And it's different. And the equipment tends to be different and the procedures are different. First real case I did of that was down in Lagos with EAN Aviation, where the CEO had me in doing business development contract, but he found he was having some problems on the ramp that he wasn't very happy with. There were cases of hanger rash, other, in some cases, quite bigger problems, and was looking for a solution. And that's when I put him in touch with NATA. Some of the directors of the company actually didn't believe that their staff would be up to an international standard course. Didn't really believe they could take it. There were 23 people involved, spread over 3 stations, Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt. Having had a lot of experience and trained under NATA myself and been very enthusiastic about it, I explained to him that I believed his people could certainly hit the mark without too much difficulty, provided you gave them confidence and provided you gave them a bit of time. As it turned out, we set them all up with their email addresses, put some screens in various offices, and let them work away once they signed into the course. And it was the full PLST course. So there was quite a bit involved in it. And within a week or two, I think it was, the HR lady came into me, knocked on the door and said she was amazed, if not shocked, at the way people were going about the training. She said, I didn't think they'd take to it this well. She said every corner of the building you go into, there's somebody with their cup of coffee or whatever it is, or a bottle of water, on a computer, stuck into the whole system. And they were coming up to her and telling her, we're really enjoying this. So they did the first part of it, which is the part of sitting in front of the computer and learning as much as you can. And then I took them out for the OJT, along with their safety manager and their training manager, who I insisted do the course as well. And when we got them out there, there was an opportunity to really assess people. And where someone wasn't particularly good, particularly when it came to something like towing, which always worries me, we were able to draw up new SOPs for their particular operation, for their particular style tug, whether it's electro or a diesel or whatever it is. And after another 2 weeks of that, the training manager found that he was able to sign every single one of the 23 people off, which meant that At the end of the course, all of the staff had reached the same level of training and proficiency at the 3 stations. And management then knew who was capable of what. They knew that they had given them their best. But I also instilled in them that having trained people, you need to show them respect. And that meant that when the CEO came down with business colleagues or whoever it was onto the ramp, that he show his team respect, and that he goes before going onto the ramp and gets his high-vis jacket, that he clears it with somebody before they come out onto the ramp and double checks where he can go, where he can't go, depending on what's being maneuvered. This is very, very important. I've seen people who pass courses with flying colours and be really enthusiastic, cut down fairly quickly by some people in companies who don't have the same safety and training culture in their own minds. We had one case where, and it was Safety First was coming in, another non-African installation where the CEO refused to do the training, despite the fact that it was a very small outfit. And it meant that he had to do his own shift on the ramp, which meant he would be driving vehicles up to the aircraft. He'd be marshalling, chocking, towing, doing various services, the same as his own staff. And his reasoning that he didn't need training was that I'm management. I've been working around airports all my life. So you can see where you can get into problems. Now, as it happened, somebody at the airport, before I had to deal with this, which wasn't going to be pleasant, somebody at the airport, airside operations, pulled him in and said, "You're barred from driving on the ramp." Just cut him off, took his pass away. So when I heard about this, I was able to go to airside ops and say, if I get him signed off, if he goes through all the courses and he passes the same as everybody else, will you reinstate it? And that enabled me then to go to him and say, here's the reason why you need the training. Because you don't know what you're doing on the ramp. And you can't expect your team to behave in a safe and professional manner if you don't lead from the very, very front. So he did the course and he passed. So that's an illustration of some of the aspects around doing a course or doing a recurrent training and the actual implementation of it. It was not implemented by everyone on an equal level, from the CEO down to the linesmen and lineswomen. It's not going to work. I had another case where I was asked to adjudicate. A man was fired. On paper, it looked like he should have been until we investigated. He was a tug driver and he stuck the wing of a Challenger into a fuel tank, which is never a good thing to do. Never. Ruined your day. And one of the senior engineers at the AMO next to the FBO asked me to have a look at it because he felt that the driver was hard done by. And I spent a couple of days interviewing people. I looked at the logs, I checked it out, and I went to the CEO and I said, I've been looking into this and I have some conclusions I need you to have a look at. And he said, okay, Joe, you sit down there, we'll get some coffee and we'll have a look at this. And he said, where do we start? And I said, well, we have to fire you. You're the CEO. The responsibility is with you. The guy who was driving the tug had been on duty for 17 and a half hours non-stop. That's a recipe for disaster. And he hadn't eaten. It also turned out to be one of their best staff members. So he saw my point and he reinstated the tug driver. But again, it's an illustration that you can have all the training you want, all the rules and regulations and SOPs, but if there isn't buy-in from everyone, particularly upper management who will support it, it's not going to work. It could fail too easily. So that's another example of it. I went out a few years back, south of Ireland, and I'd been asked to give some courses on helicopters, rotors running, or you might call it hot rotors. And people had been trained, but I've been certified by the local aviation authority here to do that specific operation. And I drew up a paper afterwards which highlighted the difficulties of that particular operation, other than helicopters coming in, landing, shutting down, transferring passengers, or whatever they have to do. Fixed wings are different. They don't have as many noisy parts about them. And I gave the notes to the head of training at this operation after we had spent a few days on the ramp, and pointed out that at no point were people warned that during heli-ops, you face a different set of challenges to safety. Your staff will not be aware of them. And there were very, very small things that could be taken into account, the fact that people get very excited when they walk out onto a ramp if they haven't been there before. People who are going out on their first helicopter ride get very, very excited. And for some reason, the heat of the jet engines on the helis, the noise of the rotors and the downwash can dull people's senses. And they can do things that they wouldn't normally do. A few examples is you have people walking and they go for the wrong door, or head for the back of the helicopter, where there's a small twirly thing that will chop you into mincemeat in 2/3 of a second. But some of the difficulties we found with that type of operation, where you're trying to deplane passengers. We have 5 passengers, 3 of them in the back. And there's someone desperately trying to get out of the helicopter and they look confused until you realize they haven't undone the buckle on their seat. Another one is you're trying to open the door to get people out, and someone hasn't realized that they're leaning against the door and the mechanism will not release. Another one is we had an incident here in Dublin 2008, 2009, by way of telling you a small story, but it's an illustrative story. We had a CJ4 came in, and we had to take a well-known soccer manager off and put him onto a rotor's hot Augusta 109, which was very, very simple in the morning. It took 30 seconds and away he went, and he played golf. And he had a nice meal and he had a few beers, and he was flown back. So myself and a colleague were taking him off the 109, rotors running, to bring him to 100 meters to the other airplane. And another operative on the ramp recognized the gentleman and shouted out his name and waved to him, at which the soccer manager, being in good form, having been well oiled, put his hand up and moved towards the front of the aircraft to meet this other person. Of course, on an Augusta 109, with the cyclic move forward to keep it on the ground with the engines running, the rotors drop to about 5 feet from the ground. And if you walk into that area, you'll be cut off at the neck. So this man, who was a soccer manager, was rugby tackled by 2 of us to the ground. That's an illustration of how easily people can get distracted. I've seen 2 other occasions where helicopters with low blades almost killed people. And if you talk to any helicopter pilot worth their salt, they probably will tell you that a helicopter is a great machine, but it's always out to kill the pilot. It's not much better on the ground. So having SOPs specifically for that operation at an FBO is very, very, very important. If anyone has any questions or observations on them.
No, you basically, well, you got into the first question that I had for you about helicopters and any special considerations. So
I think I may have covered that one a bit early, all right, Monica. But
yeah,
these ones come from operations out in the field.
yeah,
And sometimes you can have really well-trained, experienced people. But if you put them into an operational environment that they haven't been in before and haven't been briefed on, there can be unexpected and unintended consequences. Helicopters are one of my favorites for that.
So have you
Um,
ever had a particularly difficult student, Joe, in your experience with training?
I probably jumped that one as well. The most difficult student I had ever was the CEO of the small FBO who wouldn't take training. By and large, the only other areas where I've experienced difficulty is usually where you come into an FBO and there might be people who are there a long time doing something a particular way. Now, the NATA safety first structure is in such a manner that it's very easy to ease people in to the online training. It's very intuitive and it's very, very interesting with most people. But I do find if you have a bunch of people, you're in an environment where everybody really must be treated. Not so much treated differently, but you'll find they act differently. So you may have somebody who just doesn't want to do the training because they have been there longer than you can imagine. But you may have other people who are shy or don't have the confidence. With that training system, with NATA, you have an opportunity to watch people go through each module and quietly assess them. When you go to do the OJT, the big advantage then is you can be with them and you can zone in on the areas they're having difficulty with. You can tutor them, mentor them, explain things to them. I had an opportunity to train a bunch of people, and one of the guys on the course was being particularly difficult until I was told he can't read and he can't write, except in a language that was something like Swahili. He couldn't read or write it. She could talk perfectly well. And we got together and we got him through the course because we effectively got an interpreter in, someone who could understand and tell him what it said on the screen. They didn't answer anything for him, but he had to produce the answers himself. So when you're training people or involved in the training, it really is important to try and take in each individual as exactly that, an individual, and coach them along if it needed. And very often you'll find other team members will help and be very happy to help with that. If that's the case, if other team members jump in and help, you find that at the end of the course, you have an even better team than you started out with. They're better trained, they're more safety conscious, you've helped to build a safety culture, and the teamwork is there.
So you shared some photos with me, and I wanted to ask you, so what was your most memorable training assignments?
I really think the mission out to Cebu Mactan in the Philippines was the most memorable. It was a long haul. It was mostly a day's traveling. And of course, I didn't know, I had asked for all the details in advance of who's who, what's their background. And of course, as so often happens, none of this arrived in time. And I got out there and it was a mixed group of ages and genders, 9 people. And I didn't know if these people had received any level of training. And their training manager was a bit hesitant. And I thought, in the end, I figured out maybe he's just not used to overseeing online training programs, but we'll get him by that. But on my first morning with these people, it turned out very quickly that all 9 were ramp inspectors, highly trained, highly knowledgeable, dedicated ramp inspectors. There wasn't much I could tell them, but what the airport had decided, they wanted these guys to do safety first, the marshaller and the wing walker sections modules, so that they would know that these guys had reached that international standard and that they had all reached the same standard, rather than having too much in-house training. And mostly what this team did was they kept an eye on third-party marshallers and wing walkers on the commercial side, and they ensured that everyone did the FOD checks when they were due to be done. And they were very diligent people, and they were a great bunch of people. As I said, with two ladies on it. They were all mixed ages. And when it came to training them, it was easy. It was very, very pleasant. But then again, it was simply the same thing with EAN down in Lagos. They hadn't done that type of training. And once they got into it, they were a joy to train because they teamed up together. And as the HR girl said to me, and the CEO came down afterwards and said it was wonderful to see the teams break into little groups when it was quiet on the ramp, get together and discuss the various factors of the training. And they figure things out themselves. I was always happy then when they'd come to me out on the ramp and pose questions and spend as much time as they needed. And they all turned out well. In fact, after that, they then went and they did ISPA. And they went through that. So that's another SMS training system that they are signed off on an international level. I think you might actually have photographs, Monica, of both of those teams, do you?
Oh, you're not able to see the presentation? There's two teams on the screen. Mike, can you see it? The photos?
I can, yes. Yeah, I sure can.
Okay, cool.
Yes, I have them up there now, yeah. I'm a bit behind. So, yeah, that gives you an idea. I've assisted with the implementation of a number of different systems. Safety First by NATA is my favorite. And in fact, it's the only one I've been recommending for the last 5-6 years. Because it's adaptable, particularly since the subscription basis modules came in. An FBO can actually tailor the full training system very quickly to suit their specific needs. And of course, as Mike said, if they decide that they're going to do fueling or fuel farm management at a later date, they can be brought in, and it's very, very simple.
Yeah. Well, on a side note, despite Joe's photos, how he rarely smiles in photos, Joe's really a great person to work with. I've had the pleasure of working on some projects with him, and if you ever decide to work with Joe, he's very easy to work with. So I can imagine it being a nice experience getting trained from you. And Mike, you too. Like working on this webinar together, it's been really easy. I want to thank you guys for doing this. I really want to continue doing more community business aviation, community events and get people together and having conversations. So if you guys in the room, if anybody has any suggestions on any topics that you'd like us to cover in the future, it would be great. And we just finished up some commercials, and I wanted to share with you guys before we wrap up one of our commercials. It's really about our company culture. And the new standard of aviation. So I wanted to share that with you and ask you guys a poll question on what you guys think of the commercial. Hold on 1 second. Wrong one. Here we go.
History is made by this aircraft, the XF-1, and its pilot, Captain Charles G. Yeager. This airplane and this pilot are about to be the first ever to fly faster than the speed of sound in level flight. Touching the sound barrier in level flight will be more than a spectacular feat. It will also give the Air Force valuable knowledge.
On October 14, 1947, the Bell X-1, piloted by Chuck Yeager, broke the sound barrier at 35,000 feet in the air, hence the inspiration in naming of today's most groundbreaking software in private aviation. The term FBO is a name that refers to the dawn of aviation, when the guys in the fuel trucks and the mechanics decided to sit in one spot instead of chasing the airplanes around. And today, too many FBOs still operate as when they started 100 years ago. The new age of business, where the standard is accessibility, transparency, automation, and speed. Breaking new barriers in general aviation. X1 FBO.
X1 made by FBO. So I'd love to hear your opinions on it. We're really proud. We're gonna start launching some video commercials next year. We're really obviously I'm really excited about it, but yeah, I'd love to hear your comments and I really want to continue doing events like this, like I said. So if anybody has any suggestions on future topics, we'd love to hear it and implement them in the future.
Yeah, I love the connection between FBO and the Bell X1. Not sure what Chuck Yeager would make of it.
Yeah, that's a lot of, I don't know. I'm not sure if a lot of people know why the name that we have the name X1, and that is the name. So, I just want to. Do you guys have anything else other to add before we ask any final questions?
No, again, Monica, just thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. Thanks to everyone that attended. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be happy to take questions offline anytime.
Great. Well, we're going to be at the San Diego Schedules and Dispatchers. We hope to see you guys there. Come by and say hello. We're also going to be doing a user conference that we're organizing here in Miami in late March, last week of March. So more information to come about that. We'd love for you guys to come and visit us at our headquarters. And that's it for me. So if anybody has any final questions, ask our great panel of speakers here, and we'll just wrap up.
All right.
Okay.
Well, everybody have a great day.
You too.
You too, Mike.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.